let's go ahead and go under the skin, do track by track lyrical analysis for Perennial Hatred. Are you guys down for that?
Yeah.
Are you down? Just like, are you ready?
Yeah.
So as we go under the skin of Perennial Malice, people, their debut 6-track EP. I remember it being like 4 or 5 tracks, but you know what? It made for a pretty good listen. It was a pretty good start to my day, so I'm not complaining at all. We start off and we kind of get into an imaginary mindset. It's usually the library or the concert analogy, but the concert analogy, the live setting, and someone walking up to you, talking about this album with you, talking about this EP with you, that's more or less for the first couple questions that we had during the second half. So imagine, boys, imagine you're going into a library and you find a book with your album cover, with your EP cover on it. It's on the fine binding. You're like, wow, this looks pretty interesting. And, obviously pretend you're not in the band. So there's not a positive bias. Just like, oh, yeah, dude, this is my fucking album. What's a book now? Whoa. No, we're not doing that. You guys are normal people. You're not a band anymore. You've broken up or whatever. I'm kidding. This is a parallel dimension where there's a book that has the album cover on it. You're like, okay, this looks weird. The logo is really weird too. Isn't that a band logo? Oh, never mind. And you see the title on the bottom, but then you flip it over and then you have that little stanza of wording, right? That little stanza of information providing you a brief summary and trying to get you to read the book. This is your introduction. This is the first impression that you get before you decide to open up the book to what could be 20 chapters of storytelling, whether it be graphic or not, of just information in there, information to feed your brain. So, boys, if you were to put a back of the book summary on Perennial Malice, what would that stanza say? What would be the introductory impression? What would be the first impression to try to get people to read this book?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of hard to summarize what the whole lore is or the whole background story is in a back cover of a book, I would say, because you would have to say that's a little story kind of like introduction. But I would say that the main theme would be focused towards an apocalyptic death or an apocalyptic human extinction.
Mm-hmm.
But as you unfold the story, as you progress, and as you pay attention to what the lyric or what the content of the book actually would say, it turns out that it's not actually an extinction, but it's more of damnation, more of a doom kind of stage of the world. And I think that's the main attractive point that our EP has in terms of lore, because apocalyptic death has been used in many ways in deathcore and this kind of dark metal genres, but we wanted to have that same essence or presence, but also having some original perspective or some original plot twist. So,
and I'm glad that you're able to acknowledge that, because it is indeed usually the epitome of writing a deathcore or slam or slamming brutal deathcore, slamming deathcore, whatever it might be. That's usually the epitome of writing a record like that, is embodying and providing a third party perspective of just humanity being shit. So you're treating it like shit and you might as well be turning it into shit, right? So what would you think kind of helps separate this from those other hundreds of albums, lyrically speaking?
I would say that lyrically, the first part of the EP is kind of similar to those other albums that take this apocalyptic death as a main topic. But I would say that when you start listening or paying attention to lyrics of Lustful Whore, which is actually like the
fourth track.
Yeah, the fourth track is like the point of connection between the first part of the lyrics, which is more related to an apocalyptic extinction or just a bloodshed and massacre, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, the inflection point.
Yeah, and it's the reflection point. And then the second part, leaving that be Lustful Whore itself, Fate Shaper and Divine Starvation. I think that's the main plot twist, the main attractive thing of the background story. And it's more a reflexive stage of the lyrics, I would say, and the last song, Divine Starvation, leaves the way open for a continuation in our next album.
Sweet, awesome. And I'm glad you didn't provide too much detail. That way we can dig a little bit deeper and kind of like pry open, dig under the skin per se, because that's what the analogy is for. It's like, well, imagine the pain, just like the burn, right? The intensity of those open nerves as we're kind of opening this book. Like, horrible analogy to like opening a book, shredding someone's skin off. It's the same thing. But being that we already talked about the title track, right? Unless, of course, there is more to talk about with the actual track itself.
Well, not really. The Perennial Malice track, I think that we focused it as an intro of, we wanted to make the listener feel what could be coming next. We wanted to provide with the vibes of what our cover shows, and
but a bit of confusion too.
Some sort of medieval dark ambience, confusing stuff,
Yeah, exactly. Some disarray, some like kind of chaos, maybe a sense of anxiety as they're descending into the mouth of catastrophe. So with that being said, what's up?
Something that like makes you feel like something's not right, like something is, but you don't really know what. It's not
and that's what anxiety is. It's fear without source.
Yes.
It's fear without knowing why you're afraid, which is like, that's why anxiety is like such a shitty thing to have, especially when you have a disorder, an anxiety-based mental disorder. It's like anything could happen at any time. So like you're almost always tense unless you learn how to kind of like breathe, right? And not be so just, what the fuck is going to happen next? Like it's a whole process. But track 2 then, after the title track, kind of descending us into this ominous, very anxious state mentally through the music, through what is very intense music, we have the Mouth of Catastrophe. What is this song talking about, boys?
Well, the Mouth of Catastrophe is what kind of marks the start of the story. The lore behind the Mouth of Catastrophe was actually the basics that I was provided with when I started getting into the band, because the background story was kind of some sort of basically made, and we had our album cover as well done already, and Ignacio was the one who made that little story, and I was provided with that information in order to progress and to develop. So the Mouth of Catastrophe would actually anticipate the arrival of a huge fucking thing, which is the main monster that appears in the EP cover, the one with 9 nails on its back, stabbed in its back, and that would be the one, the beholder, the orchestrator of this extinction, like I said. And the Mouth of Catastrophe represents the portal, which is actually shown in this single cover, where all the beholder and his thralls, or whatever you want to call it, his little monsters, came through.
His minions.
And his minions, and how they got into the earth, which was actually ambient in the medieval age. And that will be the Mouth of Catastrophe is mainly the arrival of that thing, and it turns out to be a prophecy, a very old prophecy that has finally been fulfilled, which is actually how it starts the lyrics of the song. That's about it.
Okay. So we have the Mouth of Catastrophe. That's kind of the portal opening up and allowing all of these monsters and degenerates into our world, beginning the extinction event that this harbinger has yet to unfold upon humanity. Track 3, we have Seething Swarm. that I can imagine is just the horde coming in and like beginning the extinction event.
Yeah. So Seeking Swarm is like I would say that's the proper way to call it. It's a swarm, it's a horde, and it's where the massacre actually begins, when the main bloodshed actually comes to life. And we wanted to make a dynamic but slamming
feel
with the song, and I think that we made it. But we also wanted to provide the ending with a more blackened atmosphere. That's why it has this blackened outro. And yeah, that's the main thing about Seeking Swarm. I would say Seeking as in filled with anger, as in filled with hate,
brutality,
without prejudice.
Yeah, that's it. It's just a massacre. That's what.
Yeah,
that was the idea. The concept was massacre, bloodshed, or brutality.
Cool. Good old formula fulfilling song here. I like it.
Yeah, relentless
massacre.
Right. Yes. Track 4, we have Lustful Whore. Is like, you know, the probably the meanest title on this album. Yes. Just like, you lustful whore. It could even be flirty in a sense. It's weird. What's going on here?
Well, I would say that this is our wildest idea in terms of song.
Yeah.
It was an idea that Andres had. He wanted to have a song called Lustful Whore, where a whore is raped by the monsters. He wanted to have that. And it was made and it was crafted. That idea was crafted previously, even before the Mouth of Catastrophe lore was kind of set finally in. And Lustful Whore, we liked the idea of that more slam song, kind of like, you know, that more raw or rough. Yeah. And but we needed a meaning behind it. Yes. And I came up with the idea that song, which is actually the most rough title, Lustful Whore, which you're coming from the Mouth of Catastrophe, Perennial Malice, which feels like very mythic and very mysterious kind of names, and then you come up with Lustful Whore and you just, what the fuck is this?
It's very raw. It really stands.
Me album now. Or what?
Yeah, it really stands out in the track list.
And we wanted to have a meaning behind it, and I came up with the idea of being the point of connection between the massacre and the plot twist. Lustful Whore acts like a plot twist, and it mainly tells the story of this lady that is being prosecuted by these monsters, and the one that orchestrates all, which is Nine Nails, like I said, is just beholden because he doesn't actually act. He doesn't have a word of action. He just beholds the whole massacre as it's just proceeding. And then the monsters are finally coming after her. The breakdown itself sets the rape itself, or the brutality, the final disease of this lady. But the beholder itself actually finds out that through death and through suffering, this lady is actually enjoying. He's actually,
right.
You know, he was supposed to die through her sin, which was lust, but he found out that through this sin and through this punishment, some sort of punishment, it turned out to be a relief for her, a delight.
She found pleasure in that.
Yeah, she found pleasure.
Yeah.
In
and that was not at all the meaning behind this massacre and behind this old prophecy, like I said. So it makes him think about whether or not he's doing things right. He's just an instrument, so he shouldn't have a self-consciousness, but he suddenly gains that ability, gains that skill of self-reflection.
Yeah.
And that's a point of connection between the.
It's a very subtle plot twist. It's like, oh, you're into this? I'm kind of freaked out now. I'm like questioning everything. It's the same thing as like being I guess I can correlate that with real life. Just like I mean, I know I would be intimidated if like I happened to be a mass murderer, and I don't know. Let's see. There's a meme I saw recently, and it's like Jason or this dude in a murderer's mask,
Yes.
and his victim's like, "Oh my gosh, daddy, yes, tie me up." He's like, "There's something wrong with you people," or whatever.
Yeah.
She's like, we love that for you. It's so weird, but it's funny, and it kind of reminds me of that. So that's definitely a plot twist, even if it's a subtle one. Track 5, we have Fate Shaper featuring Lewis from Counteract.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, Fate Shaper is actually where the introspective procedure comes up inside of the beholder's head, and he starts thinking how this prophecy is completely fucked up and how it doesn't even make sense, since he's watched this scene of brutality and rape, and the victim has actually turned out to enjoy it. You know, he sees many stories like that during the massacre, and he starts thinking how the prophecy was not finally written. It was a prophecy that leaves a future voiceless. It doesn't say how the mankind is actually deserving, or how this punishment is actually working. And he starts thinking, and he makes the decision to rearrange the prophecy to do what he thinks it's best for the actually damnation to finally close up. And that's how that's the whole process of thinking, and that's how he finally makes his decision and executes it on the Divine Salvation song, which is the final one.
Okay. And obviously you guys are buddies with the band Counteract, so you know there's a little bit positive bias, but were there any other reasons for featuring Lewis on this?
Well, he's an insane vocalist. He's very talented, and
he's very fun with us.
Yeah, he's a good friend.
Yeah, those guys really helped us out in almost everything anyways.
Yeah.
So we really much owe them a lot.
Yeah.
And what better honor than including in a song of ours.
Right.
It was like the fittest person, you know.
Cool. Sounds good. All right, we have the final track, which is Divine Starvation. What's going on here lyrically?
Well, lyrically, this is where the point of the story where Nine Nails actually executes his final decision, which is not ending up with the massacre. The massacre may have just taken out like a third of the whole human population on the earth, but these 2/3 remain, and he decides not to proceed with the massacre,
The plan,
but actually kind of twist it a little bit, and instead of killing them, he would leave them with a world that is lifeless. It's soulless,
rotten
world. Yeah, it's rotten,
infertile. Yeah,
it's like a
nothing grows there.
Yeah, realm of damnation. Things grow, but they grow dead.
Yeah,
that's the thing. So there's no point of happiness or joy or hope. Everything has vanished, and of course
Papo, sorry.
that's Mochi.
Mochi, hello. Oh, sweet little dog.
We're planning to get him in our merch.
Yeah,
as a t-shirt.
Do it. That'd be so sick.
Yes.
So yeah, that's it. The name of the song comes basically because he has left a world that is godless, is completely faithless, and people are starving for faith, for
Hope.
hope. Yeah. So that's why it's called divine starvation.
Okay. And I definitely try to be like as intuitive as possible when it comes to doing these under the skin sessions. So we behold a story that was originally your average apocalypse event, your average world ending event. There is a complication where humanity seems to find pleasure in pain, or at least someone amongst humanity is finding pleasure in pain. That makes even evil question itself, and therefore they decide not to just kill humanity off, because maybe humanity these days, it like prays for death. It prays for its own demise. It just welcomes pain. It welcomes suffering, because a lot of people these days are misanthropic maybe.
Yep.
So what were like kind of the mindsets, maybe something correlating with real life? Because that's definitely something, and that's, I don't know, when it comes to writing lyrics, I know that 90% of the songs that I've heard by people, maybe other than Attila and Rob Zombie, which even that correlates with just the movies that he's made in real life, right? What were some of the things you guys were thinking about when it came to writing what would be the story behind Perennial Malice? Like, what were some of the mindsets? Why did you decide to provide a plot twist? What was going on a more like a real life level?
Well, the plot twist actually, I think it was an idea that we all had because we didn't want to fit in this, like you said, epidemic of apocalyptic death topic EPs and albums. But I would say that the mindset itself was provided by Ignacio. You want to tell the story about how you came up with the idea?
Well, it's what I told earlier. It's my perception of the world right now. I mean, the story is in the medieval, but the meaning behind the original name, which created the story and the cover art, and that is my perception of the world and the hate we live in.
Cool. Yeah, pretty simple. Yeah. And it definitely contributes to the culture, but helps you guys break away, even if it's like just a little bit. It's like, okay, this band decided to write an apocalypse event, but have like a kind of fucked up twist to it that even has evil questioning itself. So yeah, that's really cool. And that will be the end of the Under the Skin session. This has been a really great session. This has been a really great podcast episode, whatever the number happens to be. The EP is out now independently. The EP stream is over on Slam Worldwide. These guys, like every other band, are already cooking up new music, preparing for what will be their first full-length record, and just trying to continue to climb, just like every other band that we've had on the podcast, and we love to see them grow. Bone Carver too, just making fucking moves out there in the name of Madrid, Spain, and in the name of just reincarnating from the Cannibal Grandpa to Bone Carver. Really cool to see bands grow over time, simply said. Before you go ahead and wrap up session for today, is there anything else you boys wanted to go ahead and shout out or mention before you go ahead and end session?
I don't think that's about it. You guys have any?
I don't think so.
No.
Yeah,
Do you have any question?
Not I guess if you guys have any physical merch options in the works.
Oh, we're
Yeah,
working on it.
We're working on it.
We're
Yeah.
working on it. So yeah.
Cool.
They're pretty noobs doing these things.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, we're working on
Soon
it.
we will
So-
have more news on that. Yeah.
Cool. Sounds good, boys. Well, thank you all for deciding to tune in. Thank you, boys, for deciding to stop by, provide me your time. And now I go right back to dog sitting. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we will see you guys next time on the Anatomy Crosscast.